Bay of Blood. You remember this one from the mom and pop corner video shop? That silly title in the oversized clamshell VHS box? How many times I passed this one up, having no idea that my much younger self was passing on an invaluable education. But I was busy searching slightly less obscure titles. You know, those reputable on the cult circuit type titles. Films like Mario Bava's Twitch of the Death Nerve. So when I found out that Bay of Blood had been released under the title Twitch of the Death Nerve, it was off to that mom and pop corner video store to grab that clamshell box that had sat on that shelf untouched for years. Bay of Blood is remembered for its innovative incorporation of graphic violence and social humor. It is undeniable that the film's influence still has a hold on the genre today. Originally released in 1971, just as the Italian horror subgenre the giallo was about to take over grindhouse screens. Giallos were whodunits, but they were never by the numbers. The Italians always placed style over substance, so the story often took a back seat, leaving many questions unanswered. But Bay of Blood answered them all. Let's take a look at Bay of Blood. Bay of Blood begins with an elderly countess, presumably in her own estate, slowly wheeling about in a way that only the Italians could make look striking, with some overwrought on purpose, I must remind you, swelling music playing behind her. Suddenly, she's murdered. And it looks like we're in for the classic giallo setup, which is always some overly complicated and contrived whodunit, until Bava pulls the rug by revealing the murderer's physical identity immediately, and then he twists the twist by having our murderer murdered at the scene of his crime. Bay of Blood has enough twists to make M. Night Shyamalan wet himself with confused glee.
You've changed, you know?
Why?
Ever since the Countess was murdered.
It is suicide, Mr. Fasadi. The police said suicide.
If the plot seems a little complicated, it's because Bava was exploring some complicated themes, one of them being boundaries. Some of those boundaries are personal, ethical, physical, geographical, and emotional.
I'm not ready yet.
With a property as interesting as the Bay, we feel obliged to improve on its natural beauty.
A sincere gentleman would not have insisted to that extent, Mr. Ventura.
The Bay is the perfect setting for Bava's commentary because of its ecological implications. Bay of Blood is about the survival of the fittest, making it to the top of the food chain and fighting to keep your position. In this case, fighting to the death.
Oh, Albert, will you stop being such an old maid? You have to rely on instinct in certain situations.
But Reddy, what in God's name are you talking about, old maid? I just killed a man.
Bay of Blood is fun because in spite of its heavy-handed delivery, it never forgets what it is. A movie. A horror movie, where horrible things happen to innocent and sometimes not so innocent people. Anyone familiar with the Friday the 13th franchise will be able to pick out several death sequences that were lifted wholly from this film. And it was shocking for its time. So shocking that Christopher Lee walked out of a screening at the Cannes Film Festival reportedly due to his disdain for graphic violence. Lee found it obscene. It's shocking because, for its time, Bay of Blood mixed an incredible critical analysis of humanity with terribly vivid graphic violence. And it's warranted, considering the depth of the film's themes. Human beings are capable of hideous crimes against other human beings, especially when the motivation is money and or property. And in this case, it is both. The film's deconstruction of man and his passion to commercialize and develop every last square inch of the planet seems too eager to reveal itself sometimes instead of blending in with other themes. But The message cannot be misconstrued. The film is a deliberate parody, or better yet, caricature of itself, layered with subtle observations of the postmodern world. Bay of Blood will satiate both your hunger for horror and your hankering for humor. On the slasher scale, Bay of Blood is a solid 5 slashes. Not just a must-see, but a must-own. Bay of Blood stars former Bond girl Claudine Auger, popular Italian actor Leopoldo Treste, and actress Laura Betty, who played a crucial role in the film's development. Bay of Blood was distributed under numerous titles: Twitch of the Death Nerve, Carnage, Chain Reaction, The Ecology of a Crime. In addition to directing, Bava also acted as his own cinematographer and filmed many of the film's complicated tracking shots with the aid of a child's wagon. I'm Chaz Klimczak, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Klimczak's Killer Collection. I'll be seeing you soon.
Mr. Walla.
Do 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 do.